So then we move on to the next lesson, which is number 193. So all things are lessons God would have me learn. Now, these numbers are not going to be exactly in the order, but for the purpose that I wanted you to see how these lessons fit together, I've taken them, even though they're slightly out of order, because they just tie really well together with the point that I want to make about how the human ego operates. So that lesson 193, all things are lessons God would have me learn. This is, as you can see from the number, a pretty advanced concept. So when you begin to understand at 31, lesson 31, I am not a victim of the world I see. Like I said, people are going to run away, or they're going to begin to do a deeper dive into finding their own source of power. And inevitably, if you keep going, you're going to come to lesson 193 that says, all things are lessons God would have me learn. So now, am I a victim or am I a student? Now I get to be a student of life. Now I am not at odds with the world. I get to see what is the world here to inform me. Now I become curious. I activate that childlike sense of curiosity that we began to really lose when we began to become feel that we needed to protect ourselves. So when the energy is not expressing itself through curiosity, it begins to get suppressed, and then in my mind, I am creating stories to try and not feel that pain that is inside of me, where I can't be my true self. I go inside, I feel scared. You are the one who is victimizing me. So that lesson 193, all things are lessons God would have me learn. It is a crucial place to be in. When that becomes the way you operate from, every irritation is an invitation, one of my Laina isms. Every irritation is an invitation to see my ego's motivation. Now, if I get irritated, I'm like, yes, what lesson would God have me learn? This is here to activate a reaction in me, because when I am at peace and at ease, I'm really not needing to learn anything. I am self-expressed. When I am uncomfortable, I am not being myself. I need to learn, why is it that I just gave up being who I am? That's the lessons that we need to learn. What is it that keeps me unsafe, that in my mind, that has me not be who I am? Because what is waking up is our authentic self. Our authentic self never has an issue being itself, except that when we were little, being ourselves got us in trouble, so we began to suppress the best part of ourselves. So everything is an opportunity for me to find myself if I see it as a lesson God wants me to learn. Does that resonate with you?
Repeat that.
Repeat my ism. So every irritation is an invitation to see my ego's motivation. So something irritates me, it's inviting me to come inside. Let me come and find the lesson. And the lesson is always going to be, what is my ego's motivation to keep me believing that I am weak, to keep me believing that who I am is not strong and powerful and can handle whatever is before me. So I revert to being like a child when I am in a state of irritation.
Could you give a specific example of that, please?
So a specific example, let's say you are at the checkout stand at the grocery store, about to move into the grocery store, and or to move into the checkout lane. And as you're walking towards it and you see nobody is around, all of a sudden somebody comes out of the blue, and it's the 10 items or less lane, and you've got 3 items, and then somebody pulls in with a full cart. In that moment, you're going to have an irritation.
Yes.
Well, that irritation is going to be the activation. And that is the invitation to say, why am I upset about this? The minute you become upset and you're willing to say, well, what is the lesson that God wants me to learn? All right. And now you've got to go to look at your ego's motivation, and you are going to find, if you're patient and loving with yourself, that you're going to have a bunch of beliefs that are going to come up. How dare they? I am better than they are. I was here first. How can this be happening to me? I am in a hurry. I've got places to be. This is a real inconvenience. So there's going to be a bunch of thoughts that are going to get activated. And all of those thoughts are all going to be based on past experiences. So if you're running late, you were trying to check out quickly because you only needed 3 things to make it to the office on time for a meeting, and you were bringing, whatever it is that they needed at the meeting. Let's say you were bringing the cake. And somebody cuts you off. Now you're thinking, I'm going to be late again. Well, the only reason you're upset about being late is because at some point you were late and you got in trouble. So that little child is getting angry with that person because now that person, I am never upset for the reason I think. I think I'm upset because that person cut me off, but I'm upset because I'm scared that I'm going to get in trouble because I'm going to be late. Do you see how that fits together? Wow. So thank you for that question. But also, I am going to be upset because that person cutting me off is also going to activate, I'm not important enough. Somebody just got in front of me. So I'm upset, and I don't know the reason because I'm going to be blaming that person, but it's internally my ego is feeding me a sense of unworthiness. But I won't be able to see that if I don't realize that I've got to go look at the past. And then when I'm looking at the past, why do I feel scared? Because I got in trouble when I was 8 years old. And your mind the Course tells us that ideas don't leave our thoughts. Our ideas don't leave our mind. Every thought we've ever had is there. So in our energy field is stored, cells of our body is stored every experience that we've ever had. Not just this lifetime, but all of them. So when you begin to drill down, you're going to find the reason you are really truly upset, but you'll never do it if you're operating at the level of the ego, blaming over there. So all you think is that you have been victimized, but in this case, you're not a victim of the world. That person came in to give you a lesson. Why? Because in blaming things for happening, we really do not know what anything is for, because everything is a lesson God would have me learn. Do you see how these things begin to compound? And God would have me learn that lesson because God created me free. Lesson number 110. I am as God created me. God created us totally, completely free. Why am I feeling like I'm in bondage? In that moment, why do I feel small and insignificant and needing to defend myself? Because I have these past thoughts that just got activated. So thank you for that question. Sure. So then lesson number 48 is that there is nothing to fear. There is absolutely nothing to fear when you understand what God is, what God has created, and you have a concept of truth. There really is nothing to fear. But this lesson 48 gets planted somewhat early on because we have to get comfortable with that premise, even though we're not going to be mature enough to really work with it. Then you jump to lesson 240, again, way out there. After the mind has been tilled and planted and fertilized with the Course in Miracles lessons to get us to the place, even 100 lessons, 115 lessons. At 240, we still have 115 lessons to go, or 125 lessons to go to get to the last one. And Jesus inserts this lesson, fear is not justified in any form. That begins to tell us not only is there nothing to fear, but there is no such thing as good fear, bad fear, irrelevant fear, small fear, big fear, medium fear, none of that. This is not the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. There is nothing to fear. And to be able to take that concept and really apply it, you can't be operating from the past. You cannot be having reactions to the world, thinking you're a victim, thinking something out there has power over you. Because the Course in Miracles is a course in training our mind to remember that what we are is what God created, and what God created is eternal. So how can somebody cutting me off in the checkout lane affect me? You see how those things really begin to kind of work together. Then we go to another lesson, 196. It can only be myself I crucify. The only reason it can only be myself I crucify is because I have a thought in my mind that is activating the pain that I feel. Nobody out here can say anything that can make me feel other than how I want to feel unless I am either defending myself from their thought. So I have to then activate the sense of I'm being victimized, which then would activate me feeling bad. Well, if I need to defend myself from somebody else's opinion about me, I must not know that I am as God created me. I am believing that they have another image of me, and I've got to go set them straight. And if I need to set them straight, I'm going to be crucifying myself, because what I'm doing by setting somebody straight is letting my ego convince me that who I am is not okay. So I've got to go clarify it for them, as opposed to staying in my center and saying, guess what? Everybody, my thoughts are images that I have made. Their thoughts are images that they have made. They can think whatever they want. I don't have to receive it and have it affect me. If you've got a question, if you don't mind coming to the microphone so we can hear you. But we have to take, at some point, responsibility. If I'm not a victim of the world I see, then I should not be irritated. So if I am accepting fear in any form, I am the one who's hurting. The crucifixion happens, me, I'm causing my pain. Yes.
Let's say you're a little kid and you're getting beat up by bullies, which happened to me a lot, and you find that the best way to take care of bullies is to hit them back. So what about that situation? I mean, so I'm not, because if you sit there and are bullied, they go on and on and on. But if you hit, so you're saying that don't react to fear, but you have to in some circumstances.
So, and that's a valid question, depending at the level of consciousness that we're at. If we are not ready to accept that we are not a victim, if we're not ready to accept that there's nothing to fear, we're not ready to accept that my thoughts are creating the images that I see. So I am projecting.
I wasn't creating any of that.
I understand, but see, here's the thing. As long as we justify that anybody is a victim and weak, we are not going to discover our true power. And while we are operating at that level of consciousness, yes, you tell your child, defend yourself. I'm speaking about A Course in Miracles when we're at the level that we want to free ourselves. And when we want to free ourselves, then we begin to teach our children differently. And one of the things that we have to get clear is that we are individuals operating in a collective. And there is an entire world out there with different thinking, and none of those thoughts are neutral. There are those who are operating from the bully perspective and those who are operating from the victim perspective. Two sides of the same coin, called ego, purely and simple. So when we begin to look at that, the concept of being bullied or hurt by another, if we take the lesson that everything is a lesson God would have me do, so you go to lesson 193, what is the lesson in that experience? So a little child may not be prepared to take the lesson, but an adult can. And when adults begin to look at what is happening, the child that has been victimized by a bully does not realize that bully was victimized by somebody else. Bullies don't just appear. They're the product of an environment of adults around them who were seeing only the past, remembering their past experience, and that energy that we suppress when we are hurt eventually has to be expressed. And it gets expressed either in an aggressive way that we call bully, or it gets expressed in a passive aggressive way, which tends to be how victims react. So what I would prefer that we focus on is not how to deal with issues in the world, but to come in here and let's clear up our inner world. Because if we can get our inner world straight, we become the change we want to see in the world. And when somebody has experienced bullying, or somebody has experienced injustices in a different way, and they all come from a form of bullying anyways, and the bullying comes from people who don't know who they are. When we begin to become the change we want to see, if it is our job, if it is God's will that we become the one who makes a change in that area, we will receive our awareness. We will receive our knowledge. We will be still and hear the voice for God, and we will become the ones who begin to change the systems. The only reason that there's any kind of ugliness, best word that I can use, in the world is because we don't know who we are. So to beat up on somebody who is bullying because they don't know who they are does not solve the problem. It does not clean up the consciousness that created that in the first place. And for us to come to the place where we can really be the change we want to see in the world, we've got to stop seeing people as good and bad, because we've got to get rid of those thoughts that have polarity, and we have to come to neutral thoughts. And we will chat about that a little bit more coming up.